we are very far from having this war come to an end. If the Iranian side is genuinely affixed that the primary issue is no longer about $24 billion or sanctions relief, but on ending the fighting against the Palestinian and Lebanese people in Gaza, West Bank, and Lebanon, then that's a pretty tall order, because that means the United States can't just release funds or whatever. They have to compel the leader of another country, of Israel, to actually back down on stuff, or there's not going to be an end. Is that a fair statement?
Well, in Gaza, Trump supposedly already has a ceasefire, and the Israeli regime is killing people and is taking more territory. So Trump's ceasefire is not being adhered to. So it's not the Iranians have a bit of a problem in Gaza, because these regional regimes whitewash Trump and legitimize his fake ceasefire by going to Egypt. And I remember Trump calling Erdogan his friend who was always there when he needed him, and Netanyahu put his hand on his chest. And so for Iran, there isn't much room for maneuver. I guess Iran, the most it could do is say, okay, at least implement your ceasefire and prevent them from killing more Palestinians, and tell them to go back to the yellow line that was agreed upon. That's right now. Netanyahu wants to take another 10% of Gaza. That's against the agreement. But Trump says nothing. So the Iranians in Gaza, their demands are less because the ceasefire was agreed upon by all these countries, and Hamas was forced to accept it too. But in the case of Lebanon, yes, the Iranians will not allow the Israelis to remain in Lebanon and to carpet bomb. That's just unacceptable. But the other conditions remain. I mean, the Americans will have to give Iranian assets. They're Iranian. They're stolen by the U.S. government, and they have to be handed over. And we've already had many agreements with the United States and between the United States and Iran, and every time the Americans cheated Iran. So the only way for Iran to make sure that they will be honest this time around is for them to end the genocidal attacks in Lebanon and to hand over Iranian assets.
And so, just I know we're running short. I know we're running short on time here, but as I can piece this all together, both the things you've seen and the things you've said, is that the likelihood, or at least the possibility, is that this war could drag on for an extended period of time, maybe even past the end of the year, potentially, because there's some major things that have to happen, not just the release of the money, which is a huge political problem for Trump, but the physical issues on the ground in Lebanon and for the Lebanese people, both in Beirut and southern Lebanon, which is going to be a major issue. And if that doesn't get solved, then as I understand from what you said a second ago, even if nothing happens and President Trump doesn't strike after this helicopter at some point, Iran is going to strike if Israel continues on attacking elsewhere in Lebanon. And that would seem to push us even further back from a negotiated settlement.
Yes, I think there's a possibility that this war could go on till into next year. But what I think will happen before then is that the global economy will crash. Could
the Iranian economy survive an extended blockade of their economy into next year?
Well, for Iran, this is a war for survival, and so Iran has no option. Iran knows that if they concede anything to the United States, that Trump will only become more aggressive. Trump will not abide by his commitment. So we have no choice but to remain steadfast till, remain steadfast till the United States under Trump backs down, or Trump is removed from power, or there's a global economic depression where everything just falls apart everywhere and the United States is forced to withdraw. Because if there's a global depression, the U.S. armed forces won't be able to remain in the region. I mean, these regimes in the Persian Gulf, they'll all fall apart. We'll be living in a very different world. Very horrifying situation it'll be, definitely.
And I'm sorry, we didn't have much time to talk on it. It's kind of important, though. What is your understanding of what the Houthis have declared that they're going to do in the Red Sea? Are they going to stop traffic, or are they threatening to stop traffic?
They have said that they will block Israeli regime traffic. And I think this is their first step. In other words, at the moment, they're not stopping traffic between Asia and Europe or Asia and North America. They're focused on the Israeli regime. But it is going to be difficult for the regime. It's going to be costly for them. But this is also a warning shot, because if the United States attempts to escalate, if there's another war, it's already been said that at the axis of resistance, they will support one another. So the Iranians went to the aid of the Lebanese. Yemen went to the aid of Gaza before. Now they're all interconnected. So if there is a war, they're all going to join in. And I think that will be a very different type of war than what we saw during the 39 days of fighting. It's going to be much more intense, probably shorter because the American problem with ammunition. But I think it will be a nail in the coffin, the final nail in the coffin for the global economy.
Okay, and real quick, one last question. If the United States...
I still have a few minutes, don't worry.
Okay, good. To the extent you have, if the United States says, all right, you know what, this is too costly, we can't have a global depression, we can't have a domestic one, we're just going to leave. We're just going to claim victory, whatever you want to do, but we're going to take our troops, we're going to end the blockade, and we're going to roll out of there. But Israel doesn't, and they continue on. Would then Iran turn all of its fire just to Israel, or will they continue to fire even against the U.S. if Israel keeps fighting?
I don't think that the Iranians are going to tolerate continued genocide or genocidal strikes in Lebanon. I think that the Iranian strikes, when the Iranians responded, I think they fired like 20 missiles at the Israeli regime. That was much larger than the Israeli regime strike on Beirut. So it wasn't some token attack. And then when the Israelis struck Iran, the Iranians hit back even harder. So I think that's a very important message that the Iranians are sending. And the fact that Trump himself said, we should do it. And Netanyahu, by the way, humiliated Trump because Trump said he's the guy in charge. He calls the shots. Yeah, he's going to tell Netanyahu not to do anything, and Netanyahu did. So that Trump's telephone conversation, it's reporting, humiliated Netanyahu, and now Netanyahu has humiliated Trump. But I do believe that the Zionist lobby and the Israeli firsters still have the upper hand. So,
but if the United States withdraws and it stops fighting, would Iran stop shooting against U.S. targets and only go against Israeli if they continue fighting?
This is pure speculation, of course, and I'm just saying this based on my own assessment. Since the United States would probably be using its planes to refuel Israeli jets, and it will be assisting the Israelis in any attack, defending the Israeli regime when Iran responds, I would imagine that Iran would target U.S. assets in the Persian Gulf region.
Well,
or if the Israelis
to get out of this.
Yeah. It's complicated. Or if the Israelis target Iranian critical infrastructure, the Iranians will go after the critical infrastructure of the Israeli regime and the countries in the Persian Gulf because the United States is assisting the Israeli regime and they have a presence in the Persian Gulf. I hate war. I've survived 2 chemical attacks. The West gave those chemical weapons to Saddam. I was shot. I have shrapnel wounds. I've been to Syria many times. I saw what Al-Qaeda and ISIS do. Despite the propaganda in the West, they were very vicious and extraordinarily violent, much worse than the previous regime. I have been to Iraq. I've seen ISIS, what it does in Iraq. I've seen war. I've been to Lebanon, and I went there right after the war, the 2006 war. I was there when Seyed Hassan Nasrallah was martyred by the Israeli regime. I've seen war. I hate war. But at the end of the day, For Iran and the people of this region, this is a fight for survival. They know that this is a project for the greater Israel. They saw the American ambassador in his interview with Tucker Carlson say that if the Israelis take the region, that's fine with us. They know that the Israelis will wipe out the population of southern Lebanon, they'll wipe out the population of Gaza, and they'll wipe out the population of the West Bank if they're allowed to do so. So there's no option left but to resist. There's no option but to stand up and fight. Because if you don't fight, they're going to come after you. Just like during the 12-Day War and the 39-Day War, especially the 39-Day War, the Americans came to destroy Iran. They massacred kids on day one. They murdered the leader. They carried out double tap attacks in Tehran, in multiple places across the country. They went after the critical infrastructure. Trump said he's going to wipe us off the face of the earth. He's going to obliterate us. He's going to send us back to the Stone Age. He's going to erase our civilization. This is what we're up against. But we have no option but to fight, to resist. And we can't allow the extermination of Palestinians in Gaza and or the Lebanese in southern Lebanon. That's just not an option for Iran and its allies. For Erdogan, for Abdullah in Jordan, for Sisi, they're after their own interests. But for the sake of the Iranians, they cannot forsake the Palestinians and the Lebanese. It's just not doable.
Well, I hate war probably as much as you do, and I would love to see this coming in, but we're going to have to come to some sort of mutual agreement on everybody, or it looks like it's going to continue on. And I hope that that's not the way it turns out, for the sake of all the people in Iran, in Lebanon, even in Israel, and throughout the regions. I would love to see all the killing stop, but the first thing we got to do is examine the actual nature of the problem and what it will take to get this over. And in that regard, we are very grateful for you coming in and giving a very clear, concise view of what things look like from the Iranian side. Thank you so much, Professor.
Thank you. Just one final sentence. The real problem in this region is ethno-supremacism. I was on Piers Morgan's show a while back, and I asked him, do you consider ethno-supremacism to be a legitimate a regime that is based on ethno-supremacism to be morally legitimate, to be legitimate? And he wouldn't answer. I asked him 3 times and he didn't answer. That is the problem. That in the West, these elites speak about human rights and human equality, but it's all a show. I mean, they go and strangle Cuba, they go and destroy Syria, they go and destroy Libya. But all that aside, and they are openly supporting ethno-supremacism. And just like in the 1950s or the 1960s, they openly supported apartheid in South Africa, or the 1970s and the 1980s. This is the reality of what we're living through. And this ethno-supremacist regime considers everyone else to be subhuman. And so they wipe out people. And they say it openly. I mean, they rape people, and then they become and people stand up for them and give them a standing ovation for raping people to death. And then this is okay. And then they carpet bomb Lebanon, Beirut. They say we'll flatten the city in the West. It doesn't register. I mean, for ordinary people, it does. I know that people are awake, but what I'm talking about is the political establishment.
Yeah, that does need to be fixed, because that is an abhorrent condition which we condemn. Thank you very much, Professor. As always, we appreciate you.
Thank you for having me. It's a great pleasure.
And we will see you guys on this afternoon on the next episode of the Daniel Davis Deep Dive. You know, we don't have sponsors because we hate to hit you over the head with ads. I don't like them. So show a little love back. Subscribe, like, and send this to somebody you care about.